welcome. So it is the end of January. Well, technically it's the beginning of February, but as we all know right now, time isn't real. So we're just gonna motor along and continue on in that vein. So I've decided that I want to start doing some monthly wrap-up videos just to go through what I've been reading in the month, what I've thought about those books, that sort of thing. Anyway, let's look at some books. These are all the books that I read in January. There are 5 here, including a comic, which I am including because you read it, so that counts as a book. So first up is Master and Margarita. This is one of my all-time favourite books, though this is a new translation of it. I technically started this at the end of December, but I've read most of it in January, so we're going to count it for January. I absolutely love this book. I think it is hilarious and not heartwarming, but sweet and lovely. It makes me really happy to read. This translation was a bit different to what I'm used to. As I said, it's a new translation that I haven't read before, and I have to say I think I like my old translation better. Just the way that it's written, I think I found this one a little bit more difficult to read, but you know, if you're looking for Master and Margarita and you go like, this is a great one. I love the cover. Have a look at that. So that is Leviathan. There's a small cat. There's a large cat throughout the book. If that piques your interest, you should definitely check this out. The second book I read, and which took up most of my January reading, was The Burning God. So this is the final book in the Poppy War series, and I absolutely love this series. It's also like I've learned a lot more about Chinese history through these fantasy books than I have through, you know, my normal life. It's not the historical setting that I'm usually interested in, but I really like reading these books. This one I kind of struggled with the beginning a little bit, probably because it's been a while since I've read the other one, so I didn't really remember a lot of the characters or what was really going on too much. But kind of once I got about halfway through, once it really got going, absolutely flew through it, loved it. The ending, oh my gosh, I saw it coming. There's no other real way to end the series, but still. Anyway, I absolutely love my murder baby Rin. She did not disappoint. She does a lot of murder, a lot of setting fire to things, a lot of setting fire to people, a lot of suggesting murder and then being told she can't do murder. So yes, I love this series because it's very well driven, but it's also very character driven, and just it's got everything. It's so good. It's so detailed. It's so intense, I think, which is probably why it actually took me a lot longer to read than a book this size usually would. But yes, it's absolutely fantastic. I love this series so much, and if you are looking for a non-Western oriented fantasy series, this is a really good one to check out because it is based on historical China. So definitely check this out. Yes, absolutely loved it. Yes. So the third book that I read was Brené Brown's Daring Greatly. This is obviously a non-fiction book. I tend to mostly read fiction, but have been working on expanding my horizons. And also just, you know, I find these kinds of like self-help books. So self-help books, I used to be a bit like derisive of them, but I think after reading a few, I've started finding them really helpful. I tend to learn best through reading, and then often talking about things I read, but mostly through, I learn best through reading. So I find reading a lot of these books really helps with managing things like my mental health, how I respond to situations, and how I deal with feelings of inadequacy or imposter syndrome, which is what this book is all about. So this one's specifically about dealing with vulnerability and how we kind of overcome that, and I want to say deal with. This is the first book by Brené Brown that I've ever read. I heard really good things about her, and yeah, frankly, I think it lives up. I found it not necessarily useful per se. A lot of it is talking about the research that she did, and so some of it is quite numbers and examples heavy, but it is overall quite easy to read. So it's helpful to a certain extent, I found, but also just kind of a good read. I rate this one. It was good. The fourth book I read, which is the comic that I read, is one that I've been waiting for a really long time. I had applied to the Kickstarter and it finally arrived kind of middle of January, and I put everything that I was currently reading down so that I could read it, and it is Icarus and the Sun. So I've been following Gabriel Piccolo on, I hope that's how you pronounce his name. I've been following him on Instagram for a while, seeing a lot of his art for Icarus and the Sun, and so when the Kickstarter got announced, I just jumped right on there, and I'm so happy to have this. It's a really beautiful and sweet comic about forming new relationships and how relationships change us and what happens when those relationships end, and how we are consumed by romantic relationships a lot of the time, and then how we deal with that. The paper in this is just, it's really thick. Like, the cardstock is really thick, and just there are very few panels per page, which I really liked. So you get to just really appreciate just the absolutely beautiful artwork, just all the way through. I don't want to show too much of it, because I think it actually very much has to be experienced in person for it to be kind of as impactful. As I said, I've been following the artist's Instagram for quite a while, but like having this in my hands and looking at the pictures in person and reading it was an entirely different experience to like looking at like those tiny little Instagram squares with like a little bit of explanation writing there. And yeah, just get your hands on this. I highly recommend it. My last book for January it's another high fantasy book. It's also the last book in a series. It is Robin Hobb's Ship of Destiny. I have been absolutely frothing over Robin Hobb recently. One of my partners got me into her. I think I'd always been a bit intimidated by her, kind of not sure whether or not I'd actually like her books, and also because they're all about this thick and she's got like 20 of them. She's one of the most prolific fantasy writers, and frankly, goals. Like, these books are so good. Like, she goes into so much detail. Also, I think the most important part of any fantasy novel is that there's a map in the front. There was actually a map in Poppy War as well, but I didn't show it. I love a good map. Being the last book of the series, it just absolutely flies. I think I finished this in like a weekend. Okay, so like look at that, like compared to the Poppy War, which took me maybe like 2.5 weeks to read. Like, I don't know, I think it might just be something about the writing. I'm not sure, but absolutely flew through it. You know, kind of, I got about 1/4 of the way through and just kind of everything was happening, could not put it down. Just had to know what happens next, because just, yeah, as I said, everything was happening all at once, and I was like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? There's also a bit at the end, well, not really at the end, kind of about 3/4 of the way through, where I was just kind of like, I had to just put the book down and just stare into the middle distance for a long time, because I was just like, oh my god, like one of the characters just does something that is just so like, I was just like, oh my god. absolutely love this book. Cannot wait to get onto the next series. So those are all the books that I read this January. I am planning to do another one of these at the end of February, so we'll see kind of if I read more books in January, if I read fewer, kind of what they are. At the moment I'm reading a book on capitalism, which is really, really interesting, but I will save more of the details for the next video. Alright, bye!